Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into sociocultural research. Basically, how we all interact and influence each other, right?
Exactly. It's all about understanding human behavior in its natural context.
And researchers have a whole toolkit for this experiments, surveys, the numbers stuff.
Quantitative methods, yeah. But there's also a growing focus on qualitative approaches, things like focus groups, interviews.
And that's what brings us here. We know you want to get the full picture, and quickly. So today, we're doing a deep dive into one specific qualitative method, participant observation.
A really fascinating one, too.
Okay, so our mission. What is participant observation? How do researchers actually do it? And what kind of unique insights can it really offer us?
Well, let's start with qualitative research itself. Unlike quantitative stuff that focuses on stats and numbers.
Like how many people do X?
Right. Qualitative research is more about the why and the how. It aims for rich, descriptive data, trying to understand people's subjective worlds, their experiences, their viewpoints.
So painting a detailed picture, not just counting the dots.
That's a great way to put it. You're looking for depth and meaning.
Okay, and I've heard the term naturalistic research thrown around with this. Why is that bit important?
Yeah. Naturalistic research is pretty central to a lot of qualitative work. It just means doing the research out there in the real world.
Not in a lab.
Exactly. In people's everyday environments where they work, live, hang out. The idea is to observe authentic behavior, how people actually act day to day.
Makes sense. You get a truer picture if you see it happen naturally.
Precisely. It avoids that artificial feeling you can sometimes get in controlled settings. And for you, the listener, this means the insights are often more directly applicable to real life.
Okay, real-world settings, authentic behavior, which leads us neatly to participant observation. Sounds like the researcher really gets involved.
That's the core of it. Participant observation involves the researcher immersing themselves in a particular social setting or group for often quite a long time.
So they're not just watching from the sidelines.
No, they participate too, to varying degrees, of course, depending on the study. But the goal is, fundamentally, to try and see the world through the eyes of the people being studied.
Right, getting that insider perspective. Now, I understand there are different ways to go about this. Overt and covert. Let's tackle overt first. What's that?
Overt observation is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The people in the group know they're being observed by a researcher.
Okay, so it's all out in the open.
Yes, and because of that, the absolute key thing here is building trust. People aren't likely to act naturally or, share honestly if they don't trust the researcher.
Yeah, I wouldn't either if some stranger was just watching me all the time.
Exactly. So the researcher needs to spend time, explain their purpose clearly, build rapport, really become accepted by the group.
And we've got a great example of this, right? The O'Reilly study. British expats in Spain.
Yes, classic study. O'Reilly wanted to understand the lives of British expatriates living on the Costa del Sol in Spain.
And the common images like sunshine, retirement, endless leisure.
That was the initial sort of stereotype, yes. But O'Reilly didn't just do a quick survey. She spent 15 months there.
15 months?
Yeah, really immersing herself. She volunteered in British clubs. She hung out where they hung out, participated in conversations, conducted informal interviews. She was part of the scene.
So she was doing overt participant observation. They knew she was a researcher?
Yes, they knew. She had to gain your trust to get that access.
And what did she find? Did it match the sunny stereotype?
Well, that's what's so interesting. On the surface, people talked about having fun, the great community, living the dream.
There's always a but.
But underneath, O'Reilly observed something quite different. She saw a lot of social isolation, actually. They weren't really integrating with the local Spanish community. And there seemed to be quite a bit of boredom, even loneliness. She noticed many of them made frequent trips back to the UK, which kind of contradicted the Paradise Found narrative.
Wow. So a real disconnect between what people said and what their lives actually looked like.
A huge disconnect. Her deep involvement allowed her to see these contradictions. Things like the patterns of alcohol consumption, the repetitive nature of conversations. It painted a picture quite different from the one they presented.
That's the power of sticking around and observing, I guess. You get past the performance.
Absolutely. She argued they were almost in a state of denial about their dissatisfaction because it didn't fit the expat dream narrative they felt they should be living.
Yeah.
It took that long-term, trusting relationship for her to uncover that.
A survey would never have caught that nuance. It really shows you need to look at actions, not just words.
Precisely. It highlights the depth you can get with this kind of immersive qualitative work.
Okay, so that's overt observation. Now, what about the other side? Covert observation. Sounds a bit sneaky.
It can be, and it definitely raises more ethical questions. Covert means the researcher does not reveal their identity or purpose to the group being studied. They pretend to be just another member.
Why would a researcher do that?
Well, sometimes it's used if the group might be hostile to researchers, or maybe engaged in illegal or stigmatized activities where they wouldn't allow observation if they knew. Or perhaps the researcher believes knowing they're being watched would fundamentally change the group's behavior.
Okay, I can see the potential reasons, but it feels ethically tricky. Lack of informed consent, deception.
Exactly. Those are major ethical concerns that researchers have to weigh very, very carefully. And there are practical problems too.
Like what?
If you're undercover, you can't just pull out a notepad and start writing observations. You have to rely entirely on memory, maybe jotting things down later in secret.
Which means details could get lost or distorted.
Definitely increases the risk of distortion. And you can't really conduct interviews or ask clarifying questions without potentially blowing your cover.
Right. And the big example here is that Festinger study, the doomsday cult one. Still fascinating.
Oh, yes. Festinger, Weeken, and Schachter's study from the 1950s. It's famous for a reason.
Tell us about it. What was the situation?
There was this small cult group who believed, based on messages supposedly received by their leader, that the world was going to end in a great flood on a specific date, December 21st.
Okay, pretty specific prediction.
Very. And they believed they, the true believers, would be rescued by flying saucers at midnight. But a condition for rescue was that they had to isolate themselves from non-believers.
Ah, so that isolation made it impossible to study them openly.
Exactly. You couldn't just walk up and say, "Hi, I'm a psychologist. Can I watch you wait for the aliens?"
Probably wouldn't go over well. So what did Festinger and his team do?
They decided the only way to observe the group's dynamics, especially how they'd react when the prophecy inevitably failed, was to join the cult themselves.
Wow. So they pretended to be believers.
Yes, they infiltrated the group, acting as committed members, waiting for the spaceships alongside everyone else, fully covert participant observation.
So December 21st arrives, midnight comes and goes. No flood, no flying saucers. What happened? Did everyone just pack up and go home?
That's the fascinating part. Logically, you'd expect disappointment, maybe anger, people admitting they were wrong. But that's not what happened.
No.
No. After a period of confusion, the leaders supposedly received another message. This one claimed that the group, through their faith and prayers, had actually saved the world. The flood had been called off because of their devotion.
Get out! They saved the world!
That's how they rationalized it. And instead of disbanding, the group became more fervent, more eager to spread their message.
That's incredible. Talk about belief perseverance.
It's a prime example of what Festinger later termed cognitive dissonance.
Ah, right. The discomfort when your beliefs and reality clash.
Precisely. These people had made huge sacrifices, quit jobs, given away money, cut ties with family, all based on this beliefs. To admit it was wrong would create enormous psychological discomfort or dissonance.
So changing their belief to, our faith saved the world, reduced that discomfort.
Exactly. It made their sacrifices meaningful again. It aligned their actions, waiting for the world to end, with the new belief. We stopped it. It's a powerful psychological mechanism.
Oh, wow. That study really sticks with you. Even though the ethics, well, a reporter today might ask some tough questions.
Absolutely. The ethical debate around that study continues. Was the insight gained worth the deception? It's a critical question in research ethics.
So, wrapping this up, we've looked at overt observation with the expats and covert with the cult. What's the big takeaway for our listeners about participant observation?
I think the main thing is seeing its unique power. Whether overt or covert, though, with very different ethical landscapes, this method allows for an incredibly deep, nuanced understanding of social groups and cultural phenomena.
It gets you beyond the surface level.
Way beyond. It lets researchers grasp the lived reality, the complexities, the contradictions, how people actually navigate their world. It delivers that richness that qualitative research promises.
Which really connects back to why you, the listener, might be interested. It's about getting that thorough understanding, the why behind the what, which numbers alone often miss.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. We saw the expats hiding loneliness behind a facade, and the cult members reinforcing their beliefs against all evidence. Think about the groups you're part of: work, family, hobbies. What unspoken rules or hidden dynamics might be operating just beneath the surface?
Hmm.
And how might stepping back and observing, really seeing what's going on, maybe reveal layers of understanding you hadn't considered before? Something to think about. Thanks for joining our deep dive today.